Okay, well, let's go back to one of our top stories this morning, the appointment of Brett Kavanaugh to the U.S. Supreme Court. I'm joined now by the former White House senior policy advisor, Oliver McGee. Oliver is in Texas for us this morning. Oliver, good morning. Thanks so much for joining us. A lot of people saying that this is the biggest victory of Donald Trump's presidency. Is that something you would agree with?
Oh, absolutely, Kimberly, and thank you for having me tonight. I'm joyously happy, so happy for the Trump administration. One of the reasons why this is one of the biggest victories for President Trump is this is making Supreme Court history. When we look back at the 1905 Lochner case, which established labor laws of this country, onto the 1937 switch in time with FDR, which was really a shift from the court, a very conservative Supreme Court, to a more progressive Supreme Court. And then we shifted to the 1954 Brown versus Board of Education case, which was really set up by that switch in time. And we were able to establish civil rights laws in this country. Move on up to the Trump administration. The Kavanaugh case was really a very fourth seminal moment of the Supreme Court, which established due process, 14th Amendment due process in this country. And he said it today, Kimberly, that this was setting up for our children and our grandchildren the freedoms that they will enjoy, and that's stemming from the most important constitutional amendment that I think is the 14th Amendment, which is the due process amendment.
Okay, just talk to us a bit about how important it is for the Republicans that Justice Kavanaugh is on the Supreme Court now. He said today it's not a partisan or political institution. The justices do not sit on opposite sides of the aisle. They do not caucus in separate rooms. The Supreme Court is a team of 9, and I will always be a team player on the team of 9. So why do we have these two parties fighting to get who they want on the Supreme Court?
Well, it's like that short Supreme Court history that I just gave. The court will wax and wane from the right to the left and sometimes to the center. And right now, what we're seeing in the midterm elections, this is all about SCOTUS and POTUS on the ballot. And that is very, very historical for midterm elections. President Trump is squarely at the top of this ballot of the 2018 election, which is very, very unusual. And then also the Kavanaugh case has brought the SCOTUS on the ballot as well. When we're thinking that there's the possibility of having a 6-3 split in this court with the retirement of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, there's going to be great activism on the left to go to the polls. But what the left did in overreaching in the Kavanaugh case, Kimberly, is they just mobilized the GOP base to get out and vote for President Trump and the Supreme Court, for which they were looking at in 2016. So this is going to be a very, very seminal election. You're going to see a huge turnout, and I think you're going to see more of a red wave than we thought in the 2018 election coming up.
And yet, if you speak to Democrats, they will probably say that this is actually mobilizing them to come out and vote their way come those midterms.
Well, I agree with you, Kimberly, but in the 2016 election, this was about Trump versus Hillary, so it was really about POTUS and the personalities. But this is now in 2018, and this is about principles, due process principles. Can we have talented people go forward and not go through a circus to serve this country? And more importantly, how will this affect our children and grandchildren who will be rising up through the ranks like Kavanaugh did as a clerk, and then going towards to the seminal parts of life, and then having to be able to go through due process in a clean, clear way. This is what the president was speaking of today. We can't have a circus, or we won't have any talent stepping forward to serve this great nation. But this will make no bones about it. This will be about looking at the principal issues that are associated with freedom, and also what this court is going to be looking at down the line as it begins to have another pick for President Trump. And this is going to be the real dividing factor. Then we're going to see a lot of activity, a lot of voter turnout, and that's going to make this 2018 election like 2016. And for the universal suffrage in the United States, this is an exciting moment because a lot of people are going to be involved in the election process this cycle.
Let's talk about due process, because a lot of people saying, okay, there was an FBI investigation, but it just wasn't extensive enough.
I think that FBI investigation was extremely extensive. Kavanaugh went through 7 probes. That's a very, very large test. I'm a White House alumnus, Kimberly, and I went through a probe, and there's a 25-year full-field background check. That's a cleansing of your life where the FBI has taken a look at one person to serve. For this particular candidate, Judge Kavanaugh went through 7 of them. And I think it was a great move when they congratulated the White House counsel and said, hey, thank you for your thoughtfulness, your fairness, and making sure that this was more transparency, parent and disclosure that was taking place so that we could really have a full, clean probe into this candidate. And right now, what he was saying today, that he was perfectly cleared.
Oliver, what did you think about the ceremony today? We had Donald Trump come out and start by saying that he apologized on behalf of the nation to Justice Kavanaugh and to his family.
That was an extremely emotional moment from this president. It was a seminal moment. I think that was so powerful for this president to say that to the media and to the family of the Kavanaugh family. I think that to have that presidential proclamation saying that he had some feelings, just like most of the country did, about the circus that was taking place, I think it was highly appropriate for him to make that apology to the family himself. But at the same time, I think the ceremony was so seminal because he knew that it was a history-making moment. It was one of the 4th critical cases of the history of the Supreme Court, and I was so enlightened when he and thankful that he thanked Justice Kennedy for his service to the nation, and then for Judge Kavanaugh to sit in this most historic, important seat of Justice Kennedy. I think all of the moments that he touched in that were very much so like what he did in his State of the Union address. And I think that's why this moment was a very, very enlightened moment for conservatives in the country of the United States.
Okay, Oliver, thank you so much. Oliver is a former White House senior policy advisor.
Thank you for having me, Kimberly.